welcome to our online version of Preparing to Plant. So glad that you're with us. My name is Dave Reynolds, and my wife and I have been involved in planting for just over 30 years. And we've been involved with the Alliance in church planting for about 18 years now. So we believe in it. We believe God uses church plants to reach the people that He loves. And we believe in you, and I'm so thrilled that you're with us for this time. I'm just going to spend a few minutes on the front end to explain to you sort of what's happening. You may hear some phones ding and stuff because we're doing this online, so forgive that, but we're just going to roll with it. So a few things that we're going to be doing, and I'll just have you follow along with me on the screen here. Well, that was a slide that was supposed to be hidden, but it wasn't hidden. So the story there is we planted this tree 20 years ago. Just turned out we planted it on the very same day that my son was born. So there's my son, Dean, standing under the tree that we planted the day he was born, over 20 years or so ago now. And here's the point of putting this tree here. And my son, they grew up. My son got big, and the tree that was just a sapling grew up. Plants grow up. Our first church plant, called Shore Life Church, just turned 30 years old a couple of weeks ago, and we got to join in their celebration. It's amazing to see what God did. You know, Paul said that some plant and some water, but God causes the growth. And you, my friends, are on a journey of seeing that happen. So if you're a planter, you get to participate in the work of God. If you're the one who waters, you get to participate in the work of God. And we're so thrilled that you're here. Here's what we're going to be doing, just a little bit. Some of our goals together, a couple of them really, we want you to have a better understanding of church planting as a whole in many contexts. It's important to say many contexts because things change. There's the idea of the traditional church plant, if you want to call it that now, of renting out a facility, getting a team, going in, launching a church. It's a great way to do it. I've done it a couple of times now. But God is also working in different ways. He's working in house churches, and as we've seen in the last year, He's working in online churches, and He's working in combinations of both of those. He's working in places all over the world. So we want to talk about church planting as a whole, and then help you work specifically to the context in which God has placed you, because it's different for all of us in many ways. Another goal of our time is to help you have a better understanding of your specific role in church planting. Are you a lead planter? Could be. Are you a team member and you have a role on the team? That's very possible. And all those are absolutely necessary. We need the gifts of all the believers for a church plant to become a fully functioning church, which is our goal. So wherever you are in that, we're just thrilled that you're here. Here's a few specific things that we're going to do in our training. We'll have different guys coming in and presenting like this in brief videos, but we're going to talk about some of these things. We want to talk about the right planter. How has God gifted you? We want to talk about the plan that God gives to you. What biblical vision has God revealed to you? We'll talk about the place. Where is God calling you? What's that cultural context? And what's your fit in that context? And how do you fit into that context? We want to talk about the right people, meaning who's your team going to be? Who else has God called to this? And then finally, we want to help you work through the right point in time, and we'll do some work together on timelines that can help you, that I found very helpful to me. Our time together is going to include things like this, videos. You're watching one right now. We hope that you'll be inspired by the things that we say in these videos. We hope that you will receive some helpful information from us. And we'll also invite you to do some reading of the manual that we present, because we're not going to walk you through all the blanks. You would leave us long before then. At the same time, we'll ask you to reflect on some things, and we might even guide you to some other places on the internet and other places where you can get great training, like exponential.org and other places like that. Let me say this finally in my first brief video. God works through all kinds of ways, and He uses hardship even to get His church going. I'm going to take you to a passage of scripture that demonstrates this. So it's the book of Acts. It's Acts 8. You might recall that in Acts earlier on, Stephen, the great upcoming leader, has just been killed for the cause of Christ, and a great persecution arises, and there, helping with that persecution, is a guy named Saul. You might know his name, and this is what it says in Acts 8, 1-8. Saul approved of their killing him, Stephen. On that day, a great persecution broke out against the church in Jerusalem, and all except the apostles were scattered throughout Judea and Samaria. Godly men buried Stephen and mourned deeply for him. But God But Saul began to destroy the church. Going from house to house, he dragged off both men and women and put them in prison. Then it says this, those who had been scattered preached the word wherever they went. Then it talks about them going to Samaria. So they make it from Judea to Samaria, Jerusalem to Judea to Samaria. And how do they get there? God used the persecution of the church to drive them out. And the guy who was behind that persecution, a guy named Saul, as we know, becomes a guy named Paul, and God changes him, and he goes and plants churches in the very areas where they were pushed out. So I just wanted to say this to you. In the first century, it was persecution. As that persecution changed and ended, they didn't all go wind up back in Jerusalem. God used this to push them out. As I'm doing this video right now, we're still in a pandemic. I'm in California, and there's still a lot of restraining things that are happening to us here. We've seen the church have to change over the last year. But I wanted to say that God can use a persecution, and he can also use a pandemic. The church will be different in some expressions now because of this horrible thing that we've all experienced. God's pushing us into new ways of digital and also physical church still, and what some are calling a combination called phygital. All these things are happening, and you, or as a church planter, may be on the very front end of that. So I want to say to you, be prayerful. Be mindful of what God may be doing and how he may want to use you in a new expression of the church. Now, the church, the Big C church, will be the same. We're going to do the same purposes, but those local expressions and how we do church may change, and church planters are on the front end of it. Finally, I just wanted to put this up for you, what I just said. God can use persecution or a pandemic or really any problem or situation in which you find yourself. He can use all these things to achieve his purposes in advancing his church. So thanks for being with us, and I welcome you to engage and to lean in to this time together.